but at a high level, this property is a little uniquely shaped, with it not really being like the more typical square rectangular lot. Has some edges, some triangles to it, and has frontages, which makes it a bit more challenging to provide and meet all the zoning requirements for the zone.
So Jose, before you stop, one of the things I think that at least I hear frequently related to car washes is related to water. And it is the water that's coming out of the car going into storm water or into drinking water. I know from working with Spotless on other projects what the answer is, but if you could just address that proactively and then kind of how that's being handled and what the stormwater looks like on the site.
Sure. So there's a robust system of internal drains where all the water from the car wash is collected. Some portion of it is recycled, and what's recycled is used for undercarriage wash or tire wash. So we try to reuse what we can. In terms of runoff and stormwater management, this site right now, we are proposing to reduce the impervious by 13%. So in comparison to the use out there right now, we're significantly reducing the impervious. Unfortunately, not to the 15% that the county would like to see, so that we can claim that as our stormwater management. We reduce it to 13%, which requires a small stormwater management system. And because of the nature of the location of this project, we will propose some type of detention system, underground pipe system, instead of using a infiltration system, which perks into the groundwater. That's something that the county isn't too favorable on in this area because of the geological conditions beneath the surface. But none of this runoff will go into the sanitary sewers from the storm, from any rainfall event. That will all be collected into storm drain pipes using inlets, and it will discharge into the existing DelDOT storm drainage system that connects into Lancaster Pike.
So just to confirm, the stormwater stuff, the rainfall stays within the stormwater system, and all of the stuff that touches the car stays in the sanitary sewer. There's no mixing of those two systems.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the sanitary systems always go to
This goes to the Newcastle County treatment plant, and then it's treated and then put back in our system. Is there anything that you need to add, or do you think it makes sense to address questions?
I can just, Alex might sort of traffic plan design, maybe just to say where we are with DelDOT.
Yeah,
as far as just where we are with the process. Similar to Jose, has a exploratory plans in with Newcastle County. We have made a preliminary plan submission into DelDOT, which shows a little more detailed version of what's on what's shown here. We have that submission with DelDOT. We're receiving some preliminary concepts. But just to restate, we are existing. There's 4 driveways to both of these sites. We're consolidating down to 2. We are going to be making appropriate sidewalk, ADA improvements across the Lancaster Pike and the Yorkland Road frontage, and we have positioned specifically the Yorkland Road driveway. Our conversations with DelDOT, they had wanted that located across from the Seattle Hospital. Yeah, across the driveway across the street. So at least it's normalizing where movements would be, in addition to us creating a right turn lane in and a left turn lane in from Yorkland Road in order to reduce vehicular conflicts. But so again, we're working with DelDOT, with them to work out, flesh out some more details before we actually go into what I would call a detailed, a higher level of design.
Last question. Jose, did you say that
there's gonna be a discharge out in the corner there. Can you explain that again?
Yes, yes, sure. So the storm drain approach right now is we'll have a series of catch basins within the site. They will be collected into a pipe, and that pipe will outfall to this location. There's a channel, there's some outfall head walls here. And again, this is what our preliminary design
Understand.
shows, and we'll work with DelDOT and Newcastle County if there's a more preferred option for outfalling. But right now, all the drainage right now is directed towards this existing channel on the DelDOT Park side.
Alright, so that, the stormwater, that's coming from a rain, you're saying, or
Yes.
melted snow, right?
Yes.
Not from the facility.
Correct. Just
But-
runoff from the weather. Yes.
Okay, but theoretically, someone could come out after their car's washed and some of the moisture, some of the water off of the car could seep into that, it was storm drains, right?
Yeah, it's possible, but I believe that Spotless, they have a pretty robust system of dryers. When you exit the wet tunnel, we've seen a few that have been constructed recently, it's a very significant amount of dryers that really do a great job at eliminating the rain or the water from your car. There's also, interior drains that collect that water in transit.
Okay, one more question. On the left-hand side of the property, there's parking spaces, yeah, what is that, are those vacuums?
Those are vacuums.
How many
Yes.
are gonna be there?
There are 12 vacuum spaces.
So they'd be available from 8 AM to 8 PM as well, right?
Yes.
Correct. But after the stores close, all the power to those vacuums are turned off, so if someone came there at like 10 o'clock,
Understand.
it wouldn't work.
And I think, John, we haven't mentioned the staffing, to enforce, to help the customer circulate around the site. There's going to be,
Yeah, there's always a person at the pay point here, and there's 3 lanes, so basically 2 lanes, are gonna be ideally for, customers who are paying for their transaction. Everything's done by credit card, there's no cash. But there's always an attendant there to greet, the customers at the pay point. There's no, we don't play any music, there's no, loudspeakers, no one's talking to you through a speaker. There's always an attendant there. But there is a 3rd lane that, it's common to our business as well as many car washes. Is to have customers signing up for a monthly subscription, where they can do unlimited washes in a month. And so it's basically a speed lane, and basically that customer can use this outside lane and then basically just zip on through and, if they have that monthly subscription. So, but there's always a person there to greet the customers, manage traffic. There's gonna be a person walking the parking lot on this side to make sure that, there's towels in case anybody wants to just do a little, wiping down their vehicle. So there's, it's well staffed and people are always policing the site.
Yeah.
Question in the back.
How many customers are expecting? You're anticipating?
I do this often that, just want to make sure I get my facts right, but, I'm gonna say, it's probably about 500 cars, 400 to 500 cars a day that would be washed over that 12-hour day.
I just any questions as far as, the anticipated traffic or utilization, you have 400 or 500. I'm assuming that's gonna be greater on weekends when, as far as,
Yeah, you wanna kind of address the trail,
It's kind of it's that's a good daily average, but, car washes are also kind of dependent on the weather a bit too. I mean, if it's a rainy day, it's not gonna be real busy. I mean, what we've seen other car wash, I mean, whether it's a weekend or a weekday, it's about the same. Now, obviously, probably car washes are a little busier right now around here because we've all been iced in for the last few weeks. But
I'm sure you have an idea, like is volume on weekends double what it is during the week? I mean, weekends, this area is a really busy area,
I understand, yeah.
right? And so is this, and I would also ask, is that kind of car volume coming in and out of there, is it equivalent to what we might see for like the business now, right, which would be Richardson's?
Based on what was the gas station and Richardson's.
There's that gas station for 20 years.
I understand, that's, I understand, but for the other uses that are allowed, we're actually anticipating, a reduction in overall traffic circulating in and out through here, because the car wash can only process so many vehicles an hour. I mean, there is a physical limit. I mean, I'm sure John can turn the belt speed up really high, and then you get a lousy product and nothing, and it doesn't
Well,
work.
so to go
Hang on,
along
hold
with
on for
that,
just a second, let's get some other things out of the way, then do general questions, but there's some things that we all need to know about timing. So, at this point, have you gone to DENREC for your, water usage and preliminary designs on this, Jose, as to what they've said is acceptable? Or are you also waiting for that so that they come up with, we'd like you to do this improvement, because that area really hasn't been touched in probably, what, 30 or 40 years, Janet? In that area where that stream comes through. Is that one of the things, are you also working, with Fred currently with DENREC for what
We're in the
needs to be
process of
done?
working that out.
And from a county standpoint, you filed the preliminary plan.
Correct.
When is your land use hearing first scheduled to go before land use?
So we are not yet at that stage. We just got the first set of comments back. So we are extremely preliminary, so we thought it made sense to get feedback, let people know. We didn't want it to be, we're way down the track, and then it's like, how are we just hearing about it?
Right, and that's what I wanted to make
At
sure
that
everyone
stage.
understands. This has not yet gone through where, I know Janet sits on land use, so it's gonna go before our county council person and the rest of the county land use committee, as well as the land use planners. And they're giving you preliminary feedback at this point of what they'd like to see, what they don't like to see, capacity buffers for the landscaping and everything. And people that don't know GHADA, we always ask for higher opacities in the county code. We'd rather have double the opacity buffers. If it says it's a, 0.1 or a 0.3, we'd really like to double that, because we want more of that shielding from things if it's going to go through.
Mark,
Yes,
can I
Jane?
just clarify something? This is considered a minor development plan. This does not go through council.
This will not go through council
It
this
will
time,
not.
okay?
It will come to council at the very end. Once the department says that it is fully code compliant, it will go through council, but it only goes through for a ministerial vote. Okay,
All right, so this is gonna lie fully with land use then.
So once it gets out of land use, code compliant, comes over to council, they vote on it,
Okay.
they cannot vote no.
Gotcha. Right, once land use stuff.
Ministerial means it's moving it from the executive side to the recorder of deeds. That's it. It is just a paper trail to move it over.
And the last question is, from a DELDOT standpoint, and Fred, you'll have this one, is there gonna be a TIS, a traffic impact study, or a TOA, a traffic operational analysis done on this? Is it required for this minor plan at this point? Or you don't know?
No, it's minor, so that's not, neither of those are gonna be required.
Okay. All right, now we open up for general questions.
So.
Kira was first with
I
her
was
hand
gonna
way in
say,
the back.
the wonderful lady in the back is super patient, so I wanna make sure we get to her, because I turned the lights off on her.
Hi, my name's Kira Alejandro. Some of you know me, but I am actually running for council in this district.
No politicking.
Well, I've been told that it's a wise thing to do myself. My question is sort of twofold. You guys talked about the geological area, and I'm wondering in your eyes what that means, but I'm also wondering if there are still petroleum tanks underneath this site and how you would plan to address that.
So I'm gonna reverse the way that you answered them in terms of the response. So my understanding, and again, represent the applicant, not the landowner, but that the petroleum tanks were taken out a fairly good, significant amount of time ago, and that there's an existing recorded document that kind of controls all of that. So it's not something that still needs to be done. In terms of geological, with it being Hockessin, there's again, on the plan, and Jose can jump in, there's a small piece of wetland and a small piece of Cockeysville, and my understanding is that this was designed to attempt to put green areas on top of those to minimize any sort of impact or negative, burden on those geological, which I believe is the shorthand that Jose used, again, not to speak for him. And as folks may or may not know, there was an adjacent, I'll call it, special circumstance, and the landowner was very courteous with the national EPA, one step above DENREC, and letting them use the site to help clean that up. So that's not on this site, just to be clear, that was the adjacent site, so that is not an issue here. It's just about making sure that the resources here are preserved to the extent that they're required by code.
So,
Just to add to that, also, between Jose and I, we are not allowed to increase the amount of water coming off the site. So again, we're very preliminary, there's a lot of details to be worked out, but we are not allowed to increase the amount of water that's coming off the site. And we have to, again, between the underground drainage system, we have to make it work, because we can't have more coming off. And if anything, we're aiming to improve, to lessen the amount of water that's coming off the site that there is now.
so do your plans reflect, the UDC's requirements around the fact that this is a water resource protection area?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mark, these are DENREC questions
Yeah.
that are coming up. This is beyond what the county does. It comes in on the plan, but the county doesn't do land use in a bubble. Everything is coordinated through the state agencies and the federal agencies. So the questions being asked now are really under DENREC.
And that's what,
And
just so you know,
water
same thing with the traffic. If there is a traffic analysis done, like the improvements they're gonna have to make, if they do this with turn lanes, that's built into the code, baked in.
That's DELDA.
And that's all under Delta. So all the agencies do have to review this. The fire marshal's gonna review this as well.
Right.
For turning radius, access points of the building. So we will see all of that come through on the county land use site as the project goes through, goes forward. On any, even from the preliminary getting the land use. So those things will all be baked into it. I think there were some questions back here, then we'll move around. Yes, sir.
Where's you getting the water from, number one? And how many gallons on average will you be using a day to wash the cars?
I believe are you talking about the source of fresh water in the
Yes.
site? I believe it's artesian, is what's shown
Just
on the plan.
existing water lines that we'll connect to and obtain approval from the teaching water company.
And how many gallons a day do you think, on the average? Well, it was stated here, you figure you're gonna do 400 to 500 cars a day on the average, so how many gallons?
Well, we're projecting discharge to the sewer, which is to the sanitary system. I know we got a problem with, so an operation like ours, we usually project about 5,000 gallons a day that would go to the sanitary effluent sewer. Now, I understand that there may only be capacity at the wastewater treatment plant for
During peak hours of roughly 3,000, but we're working with, again, to Councilwoman Kilpatrick's earlier point, since this is preliminary, they said this is the peak hour amount. We're having conversations about, can we essentially hold our peak hour amount for when everyone else is home or using stuff, and essentially release this at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, which is stuff that's done on other sites to essentially ensure that we're not overloading the pipes and causing issues with the rest of the county. It's stuff that has been done in other larger developments to just, again, ensure that flow does not overwhelm the capacity until infrastructure improvements are able to be made. Since it's not an overall issue, it's just a peak hour issue.
So I understand you're gonna have holding tanks there?
That is one of the, again, since it's preliminary, one of the current discussion points revolves around there being preliminary tanks to ease the affluent flow out. That is not something, since we are very preliminary, that has been approved and is incorporated in the design, but that is where the current discussions are in terms of the sewer waste coming out of the site.
Then how about the water going in? I mean, you hope for the water going in, you use it at 2 o'clock in the morning, fill your tanks, so when you do the car wash, there's water in your tanks to do the car wash?
Mark, this is a
No.
capacity issue that has
Right.
to go through Artesian,
Right.
and Artesian gives the county this approval or not approval.
Yeah, they're not gonna let them drill a well. They're
Right.
not gonna let them
Exactly.
tap into the
Right.
aquifer.
So
They
these,
have
I
to
mean,
use
this
potable
is,
water.
this is again, all land use goes through the county, but it is not in a vacuum. You know, so this, anything with water comes under Artesian, anything with electric is the state, PSC, that does not come through the county. But this is where the county collects all of the information and everything, when we talk about being code compliant, that is not just with county laws, it is with every agency that has anything going into or off of the site.
Just to clarify, though, the question was asked, right? So water that's gonna be used to clean the cars is not a holding tank, that's gonna be coming
Correct.
off of Artesian's pipe into your
Right,
unit.
and so
The
far,
wastewater, I mean for live work,
Sorry.
you know, like, the wastewater could possibly be going to holding tanks to hold off, so we're not overloading the system at 2 in the afternoon. You can use it at 2 in the morning, it's not less use, right?
correct,
So that's the answer.
yes, and to, again, Councilwoman Kilpatrick's point, the initial conversations with Artesian, there has not been any concerns about our usage or the ability for them to supply the water.
But you wouldn't have a holding tank for new water
Correct.
and old water both. That's not
Correct.
in your plan, it's not right now.
Exactly, because there's no concerns about the new water, it's just on
Yeah.
the flow of the old water. Sorry, sir.
Drew Marshall, Autumnwood Neighborhood. So I read a lot of the emails going back and forth before today with the group, and I found this presentation to be pretty thorough. The only thing that bothers me, I have lived in Hockessin all my life. I drive on Yorkland Road in this area to go to Harvest Market probably about 5 times a week. And then I go to Gravely, I go to Richardson's. If you have 500 cars a day, you're open 12 hours. That's 40 cars an hour. That's every 90 seconds you got a car coming in and out. I'm concerned just about the left turns out onto Yorkland Road. That area gets real fast and tight. People are whizzing down Yorkland, then you got people going left into Harvest Market. So I'm just concerned that's going to get a little tight. And then the question I had for Flagship is, you know, this community has pretty high standards. If anybody goes into Yelp and looks at a lot of the reviews for the Flagship car wash, there's some criticism about the quality of the cleanings. So I just want to ask, you know, what are you guys doing to address some of the existing concerns about the brand?
I am not aware of those comments.
Okay.
I'm a technical guy, I'm not a salesperson at the company, so I'm not aware of those comments that you just made.
The one thing that I would point out is, as John mentioned, we don't have any implications here, so I would just highlight that those are not Delaware folks, so I wouldn't necessarily listen until we have one here, that you're able to judge for yourself. And I will let Alex speak to the traffic more specifically, but my understanding is that in their initial conversations with DelDOT, one of the reasons for specifically on Yorkland, the turn, the right in and the left in, was to address those exact concerns that you mentioned. Because there was some initial apprehension about some of the conflicts over there and how people drive, and since we can't go into every car and make people drive better, what we can do is try to make the road a little bit safer for the rest of us, who are not, you know, texting or flooring it, and that is what I understand.
Yes, and we're also, again, trying to reduce the number of driveways. I mean, there's 2 there now, we're making it into 1, so that reduces, at least that's one less conflict on both Yorkland and Lancaster, but just what Fred said, that's the reason for the clearance, is to separate out, people slow it down from through traffic, and yes, people drive, not the issue.
Mike?
So the wastewater that you generate, will you require double containment in the storage tanks?
So again, to the extent that that moves forward and is something that's accepted by the county and then DENREC, we would follow all of the approved standards before anything is put in the ground. So we're not just putting in you know, going to Home Depot and getting a plastic tank and putting it in the ground. It would follow all of the, again, Councilwoman Kilpatrick's previous statement, state mandated standards in terms of storage tanks, for those sorts of, fluids.
I'll move that corner.
Can you tell us more about the kinds of cleaning products, the chemicals, the materials that go into?
They're all biodegradable, like, kind of like your dishwasher. It's basically, you know, they break down, throughout the process. You know, we have detailed, specifications on the, you know, manufacturing safety data sheets available that we do all. But basically, it's, you know, this is oversimplification, but it's basically, you know, similar to the detergents in your dishwasher. They break down naturally.
But combined with 5,000 gallons of water being used every day, and then how many gallons of chemicals are you using?
Actually, I don't know how many, but, you know, I don't know that question. So I always learn something new on, you know, questions like this.
I do think that that's something that we could write down and give that information to
Yeah,
Mark.
absolutely,
if you'd
and,
like.
and if you could, maybe just the standard MSDSs for all the chemicals, just so we have that available, that'd be great to have. Question over here, been waiting.
Yeah, what kind of lighting are you proposing?
So these will be traditional LED lights that shoot the light down to avoid spillage around. We haven't yet developed a full lighting plan, but we understand that there are Newcastle County requirements. It will be reviewed to make sure we're in conformance with the county standards. But we're mindful of spillage and other factors that we're trying to avoid that on these projects.
And just to add on there, because they close at 8, for a good portion of the year, the lights wouldn't be as big a factor as they are for other sites that are open until 10 or 11 because of just the daylight. They would be off, they would be mostly on the building, which again would be minorly lit. So the goal for most of these sites is for no light to escape the border of the property. And with the commercial properties adjacent to that, they should currently have more lighting on them than we will generate on ours during the times that we're.
Just for a general toss out on this, we've done this before with lighting. I have 24 years in the electrical industry, doing a lot of this stuff at a very large scale, nuclear power plants all the way down to your house. LEED lighting is the standard for the county, so it has to all be LEED standards for that. The other thing we ask for is if it is after hours, that you only do perimeter lighting for security. We have that with Walgreens on the deed restrictions tied to the deed, the CVS down in Corner Catch, and the sign down there, if you ever go by Corner Catch CVS, it's actually backlit without being illuminated. It's a silhouette of their letters, they're solid letters, and it's just a holographic type backlight. So you still see the brand, but it's not the glaring, you know, white plexiglass being illuminated from within. So those are the kinds of things that we can get into the details. I know that this lies in the Hockessin Village Design Review Advisory Committee, so any signage and lighting will have to go through the HV track as well. So that's an add-on from the county side as well through GHADA.
Yeah.
So another question, Isaac had a question back there?
I was just gonna ask Councilmember Kilpatrick on the GHADA list, you said you would explain what opportunities there are for those of us in this room to give our voice at least to some aspects of the process. Could you explain
We'll do
what
that.
those
We'll do
are?
that.
I know it's a minor.
We'll do that after.
So we're doing that after this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, just this young lady here.
I just had a couple of environmental questions. One, you're going into some wetlands, is that, do you need any special permission, or are you going to create new wetlands in that? My second question is, you have some impervious pavement on the property, so that's gonna go directly into the groundwater underneath, and why do you need impervious pavement? Is that just to meet the pavement criteria?
So-
And the third, I just figured I'd do them quick. The third one is you're talking about the drainage and it's gonna go into the storm drains, like it's not gonna affect the aquifer, but where do those storm drains go? They go into one of our streams, White Clay Creek, Red Clay Creek, cause they don't go to the ocean, they do, that storm drain goes somewhere. And my guess is one of the creeks that nobody on, since the aquifer. crosses under 41. And lastly, I know we'll go over this, but I'm assuming you're gonna have to do a board of adjustment for the variance on the setbacks. So that'll be one way to discuss
No, we said
for
here,
the public.
public hearings.
Sorry, I just wanted to.
Yeah, no,
Great question.
no worries, no worries. So, concerning your third question about where does water eventually, discharge? I don't have that answer with me right now. We have the stormwater generated. I can report back where the receiving waters are. We know where that is, I just don't know it at this exact time. The question about the wetlands, yes, we are looking to disturb 800 square feet of wetland. Now, that requires an Army Corps of Engineers permit, and we are in the process of filing for that permit with the Army Corps of Engineers. In addition, there's also a 401 water quality permit that we also have to apply for. So there's a mechanism to ensure that we meet all the requirements, that you're adequate justification for filling in those wetlands, and we haven't yet filed, but we're in the process of filling that process.
And the impervious area, what was the purpose of having the area of pervious pavement?
Yeah, so that is one approach that we are considering right now. There's multiple approaches for stormwater management. It very likely may end up being a more conventional underground stormwater system consisting of pipes or chambers with some type of water quality device to provide some treatment of the water. We haven't yet designed the system fully, so we know we need something because we're not reducing impervious by 15%. We're reducing by 13%, so we're 2% short. So we have to account for stormwater for that 2%.
But you have a little area at the top of your parking area that you have as pervious, why not? But the rest of it goes into your stormwater management. So what was the purpose of having that area of impervious soil?
Right. So the purpose is because we're not lessening to the required 15%, we're short by 2%. We need some type of stormwater management system, and that can be handled through a permeable paver type system upstream where the water first hits and then flows down towards the site. So the remainder of the site is not going to a stormwater management underground basin or above ground facility. It's all collected by inlets and it's piped down to the corner over here. Because we are.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out
Yeah,
that
no,
you are
absolutely.
going to have some water going directly into the ground, even though it looks like blacktop.
Yes, and this
It will
is
be going directly into the ground.
right, and this is part of the Hockesville requirements, is to try to lessen the amount of infiltration and percolation into the soil. So as we get more into the design, we're mindful of that requirement. We need to comply with that.
If I can just ask you a quick question, because this was DENREC and an EPA Superfund site, are there any requirements from the EPA for how much pervious you can have on this site to protect what work was done? I know there's been some sites where they do a Superfund site and they cap areas because they do not want any groundwater rainfall getting back in to get back into the area that was cleaned up. Is that something that you've looked at that shows there's any restriction on impervious cover yet? I know that's a tough one. I didn't
No,
show
and
that.
just to add on to it, it's not been in normal conditions, I think, is a way to put the EPA in the last several months. So it's not been super easy to get a response. With that being said, the wonderful partners at DSM have a great relationship with them, and we've had initial conversations about ensuring that the federal government, if they have certain restrictions or certain areas they want to make sure we don't disturb, that we're designing it accordingly. But we don't have some sort of specific direction from them at this point. It's just been initial outreach.
Other questions? I've got one more, once you folks. Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a question about the stormwater. It was brought up earlier that the stormwater was going to run off into the park. And I had a question around what kind of pollutants you thought would go into that, because a lot of cars there, maybe not in greatest repair, some of them leak oil or other fluids, and that's eventually going to go into that park and then into our drinking water. So any comments for that, or?
So that's good, that will be part of the review process with Newcastle County. Sometimes they proactively introduce filter bags, a way of capturing any oils. So that is something as we get into the more technical design with Newcastle County, that'll be broached, and we'll handle that with them to a point where it's satisfactory.
Back here.
Just wanted to raise, I know everybody's on water right now, but I want to kind of go back to traffic. Your entrance from Lancaster Pike, when meshed with your interior design flow of traffic for the property, really doesn't seem to make any sense. Because it seems like it creates a big choke point right at that bottom left corner that's gonna wind up on a busy day backing a ton of traffic on Lancaster Pike. If, you're talking on an average spread out, over the course of a year, flow of 45 cars an hour. We're talking on like peak summer day or post salt on the roads, like 75 cars an hour, right? Like it could get busy. But realistically, there's maybe capacity for 25 cars to be lined up. If you have anybody who's coming in from the Yorkland Road side and gets down to that point, you completely block the access to then make a 90-degree turn into that turn lane. Not to mention, every car coming out, if they want to go out on the Lancaster Pike, would have to cross all the cars they're trying to line up and come out. So you've got this like built-in kind of like cobweb of the way cars are supposed to move through there. And I just don't, and like even on a normal summer day, don't see how that's not going to cause massive backups on the Lancaster Pike. If you've ever been to the Price's Corner Car Wash on a busy day, or the White Glove Car Wash on 896 on a busy day, it jams those highways, that Kirkwood Highway and 896 up for a quarter mile. And I can see the exact same thing happening here. You've had this laid out. It really doesn't seem to make sense.
John, can I address that real quick? I'm gonna tell you, you're talking about much older technology, both those washes, especially the wash on 896. I can't imagine that they're running faster than probably about 40 cars an hour, 50 cars an hour. This washer goes to 200 cars an hour. Am I wrong about that, John?
I'm sorry, I was gonna.
This wash could go up to about 200 cars an hour capacity, couldn't it?
About 180, yeah.
Yeah.
We said that we normally set about 145 cars an hour.
We looked at that when they brought this application to us.
we,
We had more than able to stack it, even on the business.
But we have done detailed studies on this type of basically wet wash plus the dry tunnels. And Foresight, TPD did the study for us. And basically at the heaviest peak, one of our busiest sites was basically no more than 20 cars were stacked up.
It was 20
on a
cars.
Saturday, I think.
And a Saturday in all lanes.
And we got plenty of stacking out. I mean, I didn't count up here, but there's plenty to accommodate. So cars will never back out. Sorry.
I mean,
we can fit in
right
at least 16 vehicles queuing here behind the pay station.
Yeah.
And then between the pay stations and the entrance to the wet tunnel, another 8 vehicles can fit there.
I hear what you're saying about that. I guess you also said that right lane is your express lane, right, for your members. So the stack up is really going to happen in the smaller left two that can only actually be accessed from one lane. So that's more where I see the concern. I mean, yeah, we wind it out to 3, you can see the capacity, but it's really one lane into the turn.
It's a great concern. I mean, it's a great point, but I have to tell you, if you go down to the Tommies in Middletown, and I think they're probably washing about 500 cars every day. It just moves through so rapidly. You'd be really amazed. Don't take my word for it.
No,
Yeah, it's a good point, but it's just with 3 lanes and the way these conveyors move now.
Yeah.
We, over at the car spa, we probably never have more than 4 cars. We do 5 cars.
All right, any other? This young lady here, we'll get some of those.
Noise,
are there studies of any, like the decibels of noise that by the vacuums and the large vacuum and the thing, what's the
Yeah,
noise
so,
index?
we can do a noise profile for this property, but background traffic is usually like 65 decibels on the road. This conversation we're having is about 65 decibels, but we have the capability of mitigating noise, from the blowers inside the building, so nothing's gonna spill out higher than background traffic noise, so, you know, wherever the county ordinances are, we can easily accommodate.
Back to you, Isaac.
Another question about traffic. So when traffic backs up on Lancaster all the way to like Rita's and back there, that right-hand lane is really important for relieving some of that congestion for people turning onto Yorkland Road, right? And it seems that that pork chop right there that you referred to is now going to impede traffic in that movement. Is that correct?
I'm probably gonna give you an answer you don't like. Whether it is a spotless car wash or anything else that goes on the site. The Department of Transportation is going to want that driveway moved away to create more separation from this adjacent site. So again, to kind of spread out the movements and the conflicts. In order to service this site,
Yeah, I
I
would submit that was similar with the Starbucks application, March one.
I mean,
all of this was the same as far as they were gonna reduce to one entry point on Lancaster and one, so they're eliminating two.
We're eliminating
Same
two.
thing we did with Starbucks on Limestone, we went from 4 to 1 to 2. And that took the old community news building and the Wispas Bank, and there were 3 more in between, those were all eliminated, and actually traffic safety went up markedly.
And
after doing
the
that.
idea is again to
Double up,
try to move some of the conflicts so they're not right on top of each other, people can see. You're not having two people right on front of each other trying to turn at the same time. Same thing with Yorkland Road. You know, we don't want to have it right on top of the Gravely, but not too close to Route 40, or not 40, 41, I'm sorry. But not too close to that either. But the you know, on Lancaster Pike there, that right in, again, we have a lot, we're only in preliminary design with that. There's still a lot of design. I can't stand here right now to say if that pork chop, if they're gonna want a mountable curve there, or if that might wind up being paint. Yeah, so there's a lot of, just, you know, given those concerns, maintenance might want it to be paint so that when they plow, that they don't have a hidden concrete island in there. As I said, I mean, there's gonna be a traffic channeling device at some measure, but it very well could just.
Don't worry about plowing the turn lanes, Deldoc takes 2 weeks to do that after the storm anyway.
I'm trying to be generous.
Let's get the last couple questions, then we're gonna move on, let these gentlemen go home so we can chat some more later. Alan, you want to
Yeah,
go first?
just, you mentioned about the turn lane on Yorkfield Road, is this something gonna be in addition to the current situation, even a wide?
We're gonna utilize so we're able to, there's just enough right of way that extends into the site and also via permanent easement. Here. Yeah, so let's see which button is it, so I don't, that one. So we're proposing a right turn lane here, you can see the arrow in. So that's gonna extend it, this is kind of the edge of the right of way line to come in. And then up off the screen here, there we will have a left turn lane in, and there's enough pavement and right of way and cartway out there with, we can go out on either side, do some paving, do some restriping, we can create those lanes and also utilizing the space we have on our site and again, that's to remove the turning conflicts.
Yeah, because it doesn't, now it backs.
Now
backward.
yeah.
If somebody wants to turn left into
Right,
there,
then you're stuck behind.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest too, Harvest Market, when you come onto Yorkland, you make the left onto Yorkland and the right onto Yorkland. Everybody's stopping to turn to Harvest Market and there's nowhere to go around them there, because you got the park on the side. So this is at least that lane's gonna come all the way down to that turn. That in itself, even if they don't do this, I'd love to do that, because it's insane right now. But Yeah, that's the pinch point right now is Harvest Market turning in, and you're gonna hear later, they picked up the PNC's parcel, so they're expanding.
And you can kind
So
of
it's
see,
gonna get busier.
to your point, Mark, that there's, especially a jut out here, to further allow, like you said, as you come in, there's that severe choke point that we've all sat behind where people are trying to make that turn, and it gives you that additional relief that you can kind of see there to try to get
It
around.
looks like a bypass here.
Right. So there's more space.
That's the liquor store, though, right?
Yeah.
That's probably busier than Harvest Market on a Friday.
So,
all right, last question, and then we're gonna let these folks go, and then we'll talk a little more.
Not really a question, I'd just like to thank them for bringing this to us so early in the process, and the honesty of not, you don't have the answer, you tell us you don't have the answer, and I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. All right, Fred, thank you. John, Jose, and Alex, thank you very much for your time. Robert, appreciate it. Thank you, guys. We'll see you the next go around, and if you have any updates, I'm more than happy to come back and give us an update.
yeah, I'm trying to get that information over to you, Mark, so you can see it.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. All right, while they break down, I'm gonna keep things rolling. I see we have a couple of elected officials, both of whom I've heard is, they're retiring this year. So I'm gonna let, Dave go before you. Dave, would you go first? Senator Dave Cola.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm not, it's on Senator Sokola. Hello, Mark.
What'd you do? This was
Not a biking accident.
the first ice storm. Our dog had to go out, and it's the first dog that likes me more than my wife, so I had to take her out. So and yeah, I had to have it fixed. So lots going on. We're in the joint finance break right now. The hearings are listed on the website. You can offer input, and you can just observe on the weather, right? There's a Zoom link that you can register for, and you can do it while the joint finance hearings are going. Talked at one of the meetings over the fall about decoupling the bill that we did. It turns out the December Financial Advisory Council revenues responded as we expected. So we got the 200 million or so that we appeared to lose. It's back in the revenue estimates, and the governor's made use of that in his governor's recommended budget, which came out in January. And Joint Finance is reviewing everything based on the GRB. Reassessment is not done. We are still working with the county, actually with all three counties, but primarily Newcastle County, on potential fixes going forward. There's a number of issues that still need to be addressed. The mixed rate that we codified last year was for 1 year. So we have to reauthorize that going forward. There has also been talk of putting forth a homestead exemption, $50,000 for everybody or something like that. So what that would do is if your house was assessed at $500,000 and there was a $50,000 homestead exemption, you would pay tax on $450,000, provided it was the primary residence, of a homeowner. It would not, you'd not be eligible to do it for residents here and residents down the beach. There's a number of issues around that still have to be worked out, but that's one of the issues that has been discussed. A lot of energy issues, and Senator Hansen, I think, is doing some of the best work in the entire region on energy. She knows this stuff inside and out. There's an awful lot of nuance to it, but hopefully we'll be in a good space going forward. I guess that's enough. Any questions for me? Wow, this is easy.
Margo rate increase, how's that looking?
I sent a letter. There's just public advocate is going to oppose it. I don't think it has much of a chance, but, you know, we'll see. It's interesting that, they're coming this quick and this frequently for rate increases. But that's the world we live in right now. I've mentioned it, that I'm the only one left from when we did electrical dereg, and the promise was a plentiful supply of competitively priced electricity. And unfortunately, what we have is a PJM interconnect that is limiting access for new energy source onto the 13-state PJM network. And so there's a lot of issues going on in that space right now, and hopefully we're gonna see some changes to the apparatus that makes the decisions about what can get on and what cannot get on. We had another hearing on the nuclear. I don't know if anybody watched that on Zoom or anything, but very interesting. Some of the input that we're getting. It turns out the modular reactor thing is probably at least 10 years away, even if we did it as smooth as possible. Part of that has to do with source of fuel. Part of that has to do with supply chain issues, because we don't make a lot of things in this country that we would have to start getting in that space. And the entities that do make it aren't necessarily trading partners of the United States. But I think I mentioned at this group, I know I mentioned it at a few, that 2 states had approved modular reactors, Idaho and Utah. 2 states that aren't known for being particularly strict on regulation. The entities that were going to build those reactors canceled those reactors. It's not as smooth as you think. It's a little different than the nuclear in like a nuclear submarine or a nuclear aircraft carrier. And by the way, if we were paying the rate that they pay for kilowatt hours on those, none of us would be able to afford electricity. It's that, you know, nuclear is more effective, more economical, the bigger the plant. The one down in Georgia is the most recent one. Parts of it got activated last year, and I think it's pretty much up and running fully. All 5 units, I think it is, that's down there. It was $15 billion over budget, but it's going to be cheap over the life of the plant because it is a very good source that works. We know it works. We can do it, but it's very important that you have a good regulatory apparatus so that you don't have, you know, the things happen that have happened some places. Interestingly, one of the things really driving this is the data center issue, and Pennsylvania restarted part of 3 Mile Island, the reactor part that was not damaged, and it's primarily to support data center. So it's you know, there's a lot of really interesting things going on around the country in that space, and I would encourage you to keep. Every other week, there's Energy Stakeholders Group, Senator Hansen's, and in addition to that, there are the Nuclear Feasibility Task Force that is every few weeks, and those are available online too.
Last question, coal plant. I hear there's funding being allocated to restart and extend the licensing on the coal plant that was recently shuttered in
I'm not
Delaware.
aware of that.
Indian River.
Yeah. Hadn't heard that.
I had not heard that. I don't know where.
I know they shut it down early. They had another 6 months to go, and they decided to close it early. So now the rumor is that they're.
Well, they were originally going to shut it down 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And PJM asked them to keep it for peak periods, and that's the most expensive energy we've had the last 4 years, because it's produced almost nothing, and it's cost what, $100 billion in that time. I mean, it's ridiculous how much we kept pumping into that so that we could start it during a peak period if we needed it. And sometimes where we had some pretty high need, they didn't restart it anyhow because it's a cumbersome process to restart it. So that's by far the most expensive energy we paid for over the last 4 years, because that is spread throughout our entire area. And you know, if they want to start another one again, then You know, the beauty of the 1990 amendments to the Clean Air Act that George Herbert Walker Bush signed was it required when a coal plant went through any maintenance, it had to upgrade to the highest standard available. And that meant the best scrubbers, the best catalytic converters, the best, all the particulate reduction and everything like that. And coal is no longer the cheapest source. It's expensive. I mean, you got rail cars full of coal. You got to bring. It's expensive to you mine it, you transport it, you burn it, and then you got to get rid of the coal ash. And every one of those processes pollutes. And they try to mitigate the pollution at each one of those processes, and it's gotten more and more expensive to do the mitigation at each level. So it's not an easy decision for an energy provider to say, yeah, let's start this coal plant, because there's a lot of things they got to do in order to get it up and running. And they were not in compliance quite a few times in their last decade or so of work. But in the 90s, that was one of the 10 dirtiest plants in the country. Hay Road was another one. They were the second and 9th dirtiest coal plants in the United States. And when they got upgraded in the late 90s, they were two of the 10 cleanest plants in the country for coal. It's hard to say the word clean with coal, but it was a huge improvement. And I tell the story. Dick Carter, who still works for the Senate part-time, he had a friend who was a pharmacist in Millsboro. And that pharmacist had a friend who was a pharmacist in Dover. And they both had about the same size clientele in their areas. And the pharmacist in Millsboro had about as much asthma medication for children in a week as the one in Dover had in a year. And it was all because of that coal plant in Millsboro. That's one data point that you all need to think about if you're interested in of course, coal's a lot cleaner now than it was then, but maybe now it would be 25 times as much, but it's a pretty serious issue, and we do pay for it in many ways beyond what we pay on our electric bill. So, all right.
Is there any other questions for Senator Sokola?
Sure.
Briefly, is there any you mentioned the data centers, is there any updates? I heard there were some bills going around.
Yeah, that's mainly, I don't want to punish the county, because I think we all have a responsibility. I did a bill in the 90s, the Shaping Delaware's Future Act, and it requires that when you do something, there has to be school, transportation, the roads, the various infrastructure things in place. And one of the things was you have to get approval from Delmarva that they could supply the electric. Well, Delmarva says yes to everything. Because they'll just go out on the PJM network and say, okay, we need this, and it'll happen to be the most expensive electric that's left, or they have to start up a plant somewhere, so it's, I think they have an obligation, if they're going to come here, to help provide some electric. Whether there's a number of different ways they can do it, but there was a very good letter from the Secretary of Natural Resources about their backup energy proposal was 516 diesel powered generators, and he basically said that's a non-starter. And so they can appeal that letter, or they can come back with an alternative.
By 150%.
Yeah, it's just it really raised quite a few eyebrows that they're proposing 516 diesel with 5,000 gallons each of diesel oil, and you got to test those periodically. So you're going to get those emissions, you're going to get particulates, you're going to get volatile organic compounds. So it's it's
talk about transport trucks every day. You have massive tankers every day filling them up.
So
10 or 20
that's a great question. I think it's a long way off. In the best case scenario, it would have been about 8 years before they had
With a 10-year build out.
Yeah, it's 10-year build out, and the most important part, which would be the drain on the electric, really sits in towards the end of that, towards the last maybe the last third of that 10-year build out. All right, well, I'm gonna hit the tape running full tilt, so this might not be the end of it, but if this is the last time I see you, it's been truly an honor to serve, and I thank you for your
Thank you for your
service.
Bill Patrick, come on down, you're the next contestant on What the Heck's Going On. Now, just so everyone knows, one of the things we talked about is we always let the presenters come in and leave, so then we can have an honest discussion about things that really bother us, what processes have to go through. And as Janet's already said, it's ministerial, so it's gonna be land use that makes the decision, and then just perfunctory vote, so. But we'll let Janet give the other brief stuff, and then we'll go into all that, unless you wanna start with that.
This is like,
You got it, all right.
I'm gonna start with handing these out. So I'm gonna just, if we can, you wanna do it? Thank you. So this is, is just sort of a fact sheet on the car wash property and what is going on and who has what responsibility. And I've gotten emails and asking things like, well, we want the state to, can't the state buy that land because there's a right-of-way parcel at the corner? The state's not gonna buy less than 2 acres of land to make a park. A park for what? And then you have to have parking lots within that park. So a lot of these things might be something that people would love to see, but they're impractical. DelDOT kept that land, it's not even parkland because it's not Denver. DelDOT kept that land because that was the leftover land from the intersection improvement. So if we go through these, I want you to see where we as a county have to fall in and out of all of these lands, of all of these land issues. So obviously, as you all know, we could go through Constitution 101, but everything that we do on the lower level falls to us from a higher level. It comes from the feds, it goes to the state, and then it goes to all of the locals. And the feds or the state can take that away from us at any time that they want. If they don't like something we've done, they go in, legislature, they pass a bill, and they can take it away from us. So, thank you. So that's, just remember that when they were talking today, they talked about FEMA. FEMA is federal. They talk about DENREC. DENREC is the state. And we then have to follow every guideline that they put out there. I just, in here, shows which amendments are property rights. People have said, well, why can't you just take that property? You can't just take a property. You can't take a property down to a value that it does not have now, or that becomes a taking. We recently on council had a person that decided they were gonna try to do that. We were gonna try to stop something from being built that was code compliant. And we now have spent over $250,000 defending that person's position, and we lost. So, the rules are the rules. There are ways to get around them, but there are also ones that absolutely have to be followed. So if you go back to the 14th and the 5th Amendment, you will see that there are rights of possession, control, restrictions, exclusion, disposition, all of that is in there and we have to follow that. The zoning. So this car wash here, proposed car wash, this is on a CR, which is a commercial regional piece of property. That means it fits. It is within the zoning category. It is a by right, which means that if they do everything that they're supposed to do within the land use process, they can build that over there. The other thing, the caveat to that is even though it's a CR, it also has our hometown overlay. If you remember back, into the 90s or whenever we did that, DRAC has been non-functioning for years. We are now back up, knowing that there's a lot of things going on in Hockessin. This may be the first now, but it's not gonna be the last. DRAC is back up to full capacity. Because this is under the hometown overlay, this group has to go and do a presentation to DRAC. DRAC will then give an advisory opinion that will follow that plan all the way through.
And if we can, just real quick, it's the Hockessin Village Design Review Advisory Committee. There's several DRACs around the county that were formed to give some local control to how things would look and fit in within the community.
But they don't have veto.
Right, they can't veto it, but they do follow the county rules. They have to give 2-week notices. Their meetings are usually held before GHADA, right here, usually at the same time. But as Janet said, they've been having trouble filling the seats. She's been trying to get people, and they're now reconstituted it. But they do have some authority as to what it looks like.
Right.
How it is, but they can't.
And their comments will follow this through the process. So, you know, that, when DRAC, it's a county, basically a county meeting. They are a county board. They have to follow all the FOIA regulations. So it has to be advertised 2 weeks in advance. It has to be, you will have staff people here from land use. It has to be recorded. All those sorts of things go with what every other county meeting would have. But we are happy that I think 2 weeks ago, we probably put in the last DRAC member. So we are at full staff at this point. So if you look down towards the bottom of page 1, in bold, it says where there are mandatory documents. What I've listed here are all the documents that are already in the process. They have already been completed and have been filed with the county. That doesn't mean that they aren't going to have some discussion on them, that there isn't going to be some negotiation, but those are already filed. So they are through that portion, and most of this comes through DENREC. They talk about within the WRPA, the Water Resource Protection Area of the Hockesville, what is going to be determined through there. They have, as you could see, the wetlands were already delineated. There's a water course that goes near the site, but it is off-site. So that is not going to be something that affects what they can do on this site. There's no steep slopes, no historic resources, and according to the state and the county, they have to install sidewalks around the perimeter of the 2 sides of their property.
I'll pause it for just a second. That's one thing the county did probably 10 or 12 years ago. If you've ever gone by a new development for homes and you see sidewalks start and end at the frontage and going into a field, from one end of a field to another, the idea was if you don't put this in place now, developers are going to keep building and there'll never be any pedestrian interconnectivity. So no matter what, whenever there's a new development, redevelopment, or something, they've got to bring it up to the latest standards. The corner catch, when that CVS went in, it also falls under federal for ADA, Americans Disability Act. I kind of chuckled because about 4 or 5 weeks after they finished the sidewalk and did the intersection improvements, the ADA standards had changed with about 2 weeks before they were done. So DelDOT had to tear out the corners and redo them all. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, we're spending all this money. It's like, no, because the feds oversee the ADA, which the state follows, like Janet said. So because the project hadn't been finished, they had to bring it up to the latest ADA standards. So that could happen here even.
Well, it was the same thing on the walkway down Valley Road, where John McGrellis had his entrance, and the ADA standards had changed, and that was a major fight. But that's for another day. So the place that I think that we would have the most impact is with the variances, and that starts on the bottom of page 2. So required by code, the setback shows that it should be 25 feet. So off the edge of the road, 25 feet back on Yorkland, on Lancaster, and on West Lancaster. So it's just 2 parts of that front property. They want to go from 25 down to 14 for Yorkland, 7 for Lancaster in the south right away, and 5 feet. I think if you're gonna try to change or stop this project, that's some of the places that you need to look at. Because with DRAC, and we talked about this, we had a DRAC sort of introductory meeting a couple of months ago. And we talked about, like, what would my vision be if I wanted to see Hockessin look great? my vision is that you get rid of the flags, you get rid of the junk, and you put landscaping along Lancaster Pike. You know, we are a community, we're not incorporated, we fall under everybody else, but in my view, this is still a town. And I think it needs to look like a town, it needs to continue to stay looking. We're gonna have to modernize, there's no doubt about that. But it needs to continue looking as if we care about the town, we like the way this looks, even when it's the 2,500 trucks that drive through in a day. We wanna know that they are seeing something that is very nice looking, and that's one of the areas where DRAC can come in. And I keep pointing at Peg because she was on DRAC before, on DRAC again, knows her way around, knows what we've been talking about over a ton of years. So I'm sure, I'm guessing that that is something that can come up when you have your meeting with the developers. And then on the next page, the top of the third page, it's called buffer yards. Those are the shrubberies that go along the edge of the property so that you don't see into everything that's going on within those properties. So 0.04 is the opacity that's required, that's set up in the code. They wanna go down to 0 in each one of their, which means that if you have a shrub, it's gonna be 3 feet high. It's not gonna be something that grows 7 feet high, it's not gonna be trees. So that's another thing that if they come to DRAC, I think has to be addressed, that if we are really trying to say to the businesses here, we want you to beautify, because that's part of what the overlay is for, that if we want you to beautify, then how are we going to give you permission to say there has to be no buffer yards? The rest of this is just pretty much riparian buffer, excuse me. So the variance to the wetlands, that is another thing. Understand when you look at the plans are all online, understand when you look at the plan where the wetlands were, where they want to relocate them if that's what they're going to do, and look at the topography of the land. And many of you have been in this business for lots of years throughout your career, try to understand what the difference means in the positioning. The thing that, this is a brownfield site, and the state of Delaware does encourage redevelopment of brownfield sites. So that is something that is probably pro for this development to be built. And so the bottom of page 3, really just next steps are the DRAC meeting. There will be a mandatory hearing because of the HT zoning. And then once that's through, then they have to go to the Board of Adjustment, because it's not the county itself that can relieve them from the buffer yards and from the through any of the variances they ask for, and there are quite a few. It's not the county itself, it is a separate board that makes a decision on that, and that decision falls then to the county and becomes part of what needs to be, it becomes part of what is going to be code compliant. So, any questions? I don't know that I absolutely have the answers, but I can get them. You wanna choose people?
I'm sorry. We'll start with the only.
Since it's a minor plan and not a major plan?
It is a minor plan.
Will they still have a plus meeting, or are they
No.
just formation?
Well, they may have a plus meeting, but everybody that would be talking at the plus meeting, they have to go to anyway because of the process that they're in. So plus, just, they'll bring in the Department of Education. Well, they're not gonna care because there's no people that are moving in there. They have to bring in ag. Ag isn't gonna care because we're not growing anything there. So the people that are involved in this, we have to have certificates from all of them. So even if they don't have a formal plus meeting, it's probably doing more than what a plus meeting would actually do. I've never seen any department come into a plus meeting and say, no, we have a real problem with that, and start going through it.
I
They're-
just didn't know
they-
if there was a place for. public
It's once
comment.
things get into the process, then it's those departments that say, oh, wait a minute, we must have missed this, can we now go back?
Based on the number of boards and other entities that have to review this, assuming everything goes at a normal pace, when would we expect or could expect that there be a groundbreaking if they start? Are we talking a year from now, 18 months from now, 2 years from now, 6 months from now? Assuming everything in there goes.
I
got that one. If it were perfect and all the stars aligned and there was no financing issues and not a single spotted chipmunk that ran across the road, theoretically, they could start in 18 months. Now, the next question is, how many projects have actually started 18 months afterwards?
Right.
None that I can remember in the last 12 years. It'll probably be 2.5 years once all the things have been done before we saw anything. Now, they might do demolition and things of that nature.
some cleanup
but
and things
clean
like
up the
that,
lot,
yes.
get rid of all the miscellaneous stuff and do the underground drain stuff, but there won't be, everything is a process. I mean, look at Valley Road, that's been approved.
Well,
and they're going on 4 years.
From approval, you get 5 years, but for 5 years, you just have to put a shovel in the ground.
Cut an entrance,
Yeah.
strip off something on
Right.
the property, and your grandfather, and you
And
block
then you
your
get
plan.
extensions.
Is that why the house was knocked down on Valley Road?
That's why they probably knocked it down, because they were talking about that.
The
They
5
were
years
approaching
was
their
up.
5-year window.
Right.
And I had mentioned that, and sure enough, he was out there, because they're also doing the project behind there. So he probably decided it was time for him to move too.
In Pike Creek, it's probably been, oh my God, I was working for the General Assembly when they wanted to build an office building at Pike Creek Boulevard. And they got every extension they could, and in order to say that they started, they cut an entrance. And nothing still has been done. I've been on council for 15 years, and I was with the
Yeah.
state before that.
For a few
So-
years.
Just a real quick clarification, I thought I heard you say that this was not on the Hockessin aquifer, is that correct?
I think there is a small part, but basically is not on the Cockeysville,
Okay.
according to
Upper
what is
corner.
filed.
That's what I thought, and that's what one of the gentlemen had said that it
Right.
was. So I just wanted to make sure that.
If you look on the plan, it'll show, go on the site, look up the address. I always look up Richardson's address or the old Exxon or something, and just scoot over on the map. Click on it, and then you look, and I think it's the upper corner where they have like the parking.
Sure, I
Yeah, and-
appreciate the clarification.
Mike.
Go ahead, Mike.
He didn't mention it, I don't believe, but they seem to have a sewer capacity issue.
Yeah, they have a sewer capacity issue, and that is fully county. They also have a water issue more than what they talked about. And that is something that they worked through with Artesian. I think they wanted 5,250 gallons a day, and that is not presently available. They talked about like the 3,200, and according to what's online, there is limited capacity for about 3,000 right now. So that's something that, but a lot of this is peak time and off peak. So when he talked about the fact that if they were gonna fill tanks, they could fill them at 2:00 in the morning, because at 2:00 in the morning, probably the capacity is there. But it wouldn't be there at 4 in the afternoon when people are cooking and then turning dishwashers on and all of that. But those are things that come through Artesian. The sewer comes through us, the water comes through Artesian. But in order for the sewer to work, you've gotta have the water.
And just to remind everybody, if you remember the NBF plant down in Yorkland, it tied up millions of gallons per day coming up into
Right.
Hockessin and pumping through the county sewer system. And most of those gallonage are still out there. A lot of them are tied up, but all the projects that have been approved, they're already on allotment. So this is taking into consideration projects that haven't even been built yet in Hockessin, from Valley Road all the way down, because it all goes to Wilmington's treatment plant. So as it says in there, first come, first serve.
It's I mean, that's whoever's in there first, not just in there asking, but in there doing the paperwork and getting the permission. That is, if there's 3,000 gallons available and somebody's coming in and they think that they need 2,000 a day, then there's only 1,000 left over.
And
So-
if you looked at your sewer bill, you probably saw, because everyone just got their sewer bill, right? Did you notice it went up about $80? A lot of that's for improvements, because there's been some issues they found in the sewer pipes,
Well,
and sections.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, we had a $10 million fix. And it was at the end of the line where it goes into the sewer treatment plant. And a huge, huge piece of concrete fell out. This is a gross story.
Oh, yeah.
Huge piece of concrete. Now, I'm sure all of you, when you were little, you thought you wanted to grow up to be a spelunker in a sewer. So we had to find somebody that could go into the sewer, dive into the sewer, and feel their way along the edge until they found where this chunk was. And I think the chunk was about a mile in, so they spent a lot of time. Nobody in Delaware does this. We had to bring
nobody
people in
wants
from
to.
New Jersey. But in order to do that, to fix that, we had to close that whole exit. And that's, everything comes in before that. So we had to close that, and we had to build a line
2 bypasses above ground around that
above
whole
ground to
damaged
get
section.
all of the sewer from above the canal into the treatment plant. So with the $25, it's an Escalade. It was something where there was a discount, and it's supposed to be coming off as you go through the years. So this $25 that was added on is because the discount is changing as you go through. But remember, we don't have $10 million just sitting there. So then we take loans through the state because they have the cheapest rates. So we can get a loan from them for like 1%.
And the reason I bring that up, cautionary tale, they could say to Public Works, hey, we will pay X towards sewer renovations if you give us the capacity variance. So that's a possibility. It's not cheap, but it's a possibility.
Right.
So that's something that they could do to counter the sewage issue.
Yep.
Yep,
I think
look
Kira
back
was
here.
next.
Yeah, Kira, were you next? Go ahead.
So, just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, while this won't go before county council proper, it still goes to the land use committee, correct?
Absolutely. Well, it does not go to planning board. It goes, yes, it goes through land use committee on council. But at that point, it is a ministerial vote, and it won't come to council until every criteria is met, and then you must send it over. You cannot stop it at the end of a process.
So my question is, can we expect that you will let Mark know when this is going to come to land use committee so that people can come to land use committee to give public comment? Because I know that there is opportunity for public comment.
Yes, there's always opportunity for public comment. And if this comes in within the next 9 months, I will. Otherwise, somebody else is gonna have to, because I announced 4 years ago that this was my last term, and
She's got really cute grandkids.
I'm
She
done
wants
with
to
the
spend
fun.
time with.
15 years at the state, 15 years at the county is more than enough. Yes.
I just wanted to mention that the sewer capacity thing isn't just at like the macro county level. I live on Valley Road, and 2 times over the past, say, 20 years, my basement has filled up to like 4 feet high of raw sewage.
Oh,
And have had to have them,
Older house or
clean
newer
it.
house?
Huh?
Older house or newer house?
Newer house. I mean, newer.
10 years? 10 years
No,
old?
no, no.
30 years,
30
that's
years,
new.
Yeah.
Could be tree incursions into your lines.
Yeah,
Because
no,
that-
yeah.
It's pretty common around here.
Yeah.
I found that out.
They
one day,
said
too.
that it was blockage down Valley Road, it was like boulder or.
And
chunks of
we're in the
stuff.
process right now of fixing, behind Hockessin Green. That whole line there has had problems, and
So
that's,
some of the infrastructure in our town, so if they're gonna say, oh, we'll do something at the county level, please be aware that 1 street away, I
Right.
have problems with my sewer.
From your end, it'll actually get better once the project that Blenheim's doing at the former Morgrellis, because there's also a large sewer that's going in. The county has had the right of way in place for decades, and it will be put in at some point.
right.
It's already back there. If you look, you see all the pipes out there. I don't believe any of that is for the county project. That's all for the housing project. But there's a massive, I think it's a 40 or 50 foot right of way behind the back of Morgrellis property up to the soccer fields and all the way down to Lantana and Hockessin Green. And there will be a larger new pipe to collect sewage from everything else.
They're working on that now.
Yeah, so that's all in plan. Yes, sir.
I think the councilwoman kind of undersold the size of the concrete chunk. At the county, Christina River Force main, because I've been in that pipe and I've seen it, and it was about the size of a pond. So we're talking something huge.
So you can imagine something like that falls in, and what the breaching eventually is going to be, because now the structure is no longer solid.
And to that point, the big reason that happened, Christina River Force main was built too big at the time it was done, and it allowed gases to build up and scour and erode the structure of the pipe over time, until it reached the point that it was going to get to capacity, and then at that point it was too weak to maintain capacity, which seems to raise the same problem here of if we've maybe got capacity but haven't been anywhere close to hitting it, could the same underlying issues be existing in the sewer system? Have Public Works gone in and done the same level of analysis to see if we can handle
By
it?
federal law, when Tom Gordon was still county executive, they weren't actually doing what they were supposed to. They were supposed to start.
We are shocked.
Yeah, unbelievable. And if you went down to Public Works, they had 4 scoping trucks, which were a crew of 3 to 4 people. They're supposed to go out and by law, federal law, you're supposed to scope every mile of the county sewer every 2 to 3 years. Actually, it was doing every year, but they weren't even doing it every 3 or 4. So the way, I hate to even say this, but the way he got around it, this is politics at its best. Because the Fed said you didn't have enough trucks or crews to be able to do it, there's no way in hell you're going to be able to scope it. So they allocated, and this is the loop of wonderful county government, fight to change. They approve the budget that the executive puts out there. He bought 4 new trucks. They allocate the payroll. They didn't hire anybody, and they parked the 4 new trucks behind Public Works down there at the old airport and left them there. And the feds went, great, you now have enough capacity to scope them. But they didn't scope them. So that's the difference there. Now, this stuff is getting scoped, but it's not on the annual basis. It's every 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Which is still better than it used to be, which was hardly ever.
Right.
But they're still playing that game at the executive suite where they just buy the equipment, allocate the payroll, and don't actually put the people to work. So things you'll find out if you start going to a lot of county meetings and board hearings. Where's Kara when you need her? She should hear this stuff. This is perfect. We'll talk about it. But yeah, so that's
much in the bathroom.
Yeah.
So any other questions? And you can email me, you can email Mark, he can get them to me. I can get answers.
I will tell you that from what we call the GHADA standards, we don't like zero opacity ever. The setbacks, I think, are going to be, like Janet says, a good way to do it. However, be careful, don't put all your eggs in that basket, because all you've got to do is look up and down Lancaster Pike, and you're not going to see too much that's 25-foot setback already. And they will point to that as a reason to support their variance, especially with their improvements they're doing, which the other areas don't have. I look at right now where the dry cleaner is and Mexican restaurant and Rita's. They've got the little plastic pylons, no pork chop, just the plastic pylons. So everybody plows through them eventually, especially when the plow trucks come through. But they aren't set back, they don't have the right access or entryway, and their setback is less than the requirement too. They're going to point to that, and that's right next door. So again, some of the things that I would say this: plan for if it's going to happen, and get all of your wants in that ask. We've always done that, so that no matter what, we can say, look, if you do this, 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 and this, we're okay with it. And then the groups go off and say, we want you to look at this, the opacity is too low, we want you to look at the traffic counts, all the different improvements. But if you don't do anything but say no, I will tell you what you'll end up with. Go down to 6 Poppers, go back from the old Shields lumber and look at the daycare that was built there. We fought that 22 years ago, tooth and nail, because it butted up against residential. And they had by right plan, commercial neighborhood, and when it got all done, they had spent all their money on lawyers fighting back and forth to protect the neighbors that were behind it, and found out you had to have a 10-foot high fence instead of it was a 6-foot high fence they put in, but you need to have a minimum 8-foot high fence. Go look at that wooden fence and tell me if that looks anything like you'd like to see. They literally tacked on 2 foot on top of the 6-foot fence. It looks like shit, to be honest. And it's gonna stay like that until it falls down. Everything that was fought, they said, no, we're gonna do the minimum. And we got code minimum on that project. Every single thing, lighting, setbacks, everything was by right to the minimum. And I've always said code is a minimum. We want code plus plus. Not because we're Hockessin, but because we're decent people and we like nice things. Everybody likes nice things. So get our wants, if it were to go through, locked down and agreed to. And then take the legal route, look at the things that they have to have. But I'll tell you, a zero opacity, no way. That one down there has a zero opacity. We got them to put some trees in because they had some money left. And that's only because that land use attorney had another project coming out in Hockessin, and he said, you know what? I better get some goodwill back. But that's not how it's gonna go. If you start out with just pitchforks and torches, they're gonna say, fine. Because Janet said, it's not gonna go through the entire process. They won't have a plus hearing unless there's something that gets caught. Denrec's gonna weigh in, everyone's gonna weigh in and sign off on their portion. And this is gonna go through with a mandatory yes vote, because it meets the plan and the codes and the comp plan. So all we can do, and again, we have only the power of the people here to say, we like you, but we want you to play nice in our backyard. So we don't want pylon signs. I love those things, big posts with lighted signs. We don't like backlit signs. We want proper landscaping. We want monument signs. We want things so that they're not looking like a stark aluminum and steel, neon lit building. It doesn't fit with the character of Hockessin. So if we can get those things in and agreed to, no matter what, if they win, we at least have the design side and some of the things that make it fit in better. And if you don't do that and they win, they can build exactly what you saw earlier, which I don't particularly like the design. How many people like the big spire going up with the logo on the top and the steel and, copper and whatever it was on there? It looks like crap in my mind, but it doesn't fit the area. But that's what they'll build if we just start out saying, don't like it, and we're gonna fight you tooth and nail. And you're not gonna be able to fight much beyond your teeth because it's a ministerial.
I just wanted to add to the point you made about the cost of the sewer bills, the improvements needed to the system. If it is determined that there are large scale improvements needed, given what you guys are all probably going to hear about in the next month or so, the county's budget situation, that is going to be a marketing chip for them. If they come in and say, we'll make these millions, we're talking 8-figure millions of levels of improvements to this executive will take that and say, sweet, that's money I don't have to worry about people getting mad at me about. So leaning not just on these boards and land use, but leaning on the executive office itself is another way to make it clear that you know what's happening and you're not just gonna ignore it as it goes by quietly.
Yep, we're 12,820 odd some odd people in Hockessin against the rest of the county that's gonna say, we'd rather not have to have a huge sewer bill. So keep that in mind too. I'm just saying, I've been doing this for a while, and the fact is, everybody's a little ticked off at how everything's so expensive. So they might sacrifice good old Hockessin for the sake of the rest of the county if these people come in and say, hey, we'll pay the 10. All you gotta do is run the numbers. If he's really talking about 400 to 500 cars a day going by here, and that they can process 180 an hour, I'll be honest, I thought of a car wash business 8 years ago at the top of the hill and doing one of the old style self-service laser washes, because there's none around here and the market is huge and the profits are huge, and you don't even really, this one's manned, so it's got higher cost, but it's a great business model because they're popping up everywhere. So there's some huge money in this. So follow the money if you want to figure out why somebody's doing something or not doing something. And they're doing this because there's a lot of money on this corridor from here to PA. And it's not just Hockessin that's going to use that. This do traffic counts, and you'll see all the PA tags going flying through here. Peg probably gets a lot of business from PA.
Awful.
Yep. So I go to Jake Bricks every morning starting at 5:30 coming down Williamsville. But anyway, all right, we'll do something. I can tell you that we were thinking of doing a focus group, but because it's ministerial and a by right plan, it doesn't make sense to do a focus group. But what we can do is have a working group where we'll get everybody's comments. And I will say that one of the best things you can do if you do go to the hearings, don't repeat. Get together, build a story. When they did the project down at, the Keith Stoltz project originally, which I called the Big Red Herring, because he really didn't want to build a giant one. He wanted a smaller plan all along, so he presented this other one and said, look at this terrible plan. They went, oh, this is terrible, we hate that. He said, I have a smaller one, it's much nicer. They went, oh, it's beautiful. So, line up your story so that you're not repeating. And somebody talk about traffic, somebody talk about water protection, somebody talk about the recharge. That way you build the story over your 3 minutes, because you get 3 minutes of public comment, and then they hit the switch. And I understand the council president is pretty quick on the switch these days. So, after watching the hearing the other night online, that was kind of comical, actually. You weren't, I think you got off already before all the fireworks happened.
Oh, no, I didn't.
It's very interesting, but that's another good way to do it, sort of, we build a story of what the things we don't want, and at the same time, offer some things that we'd like this in exchange for this, if this does go through. So, we'll go from there.
Can we hope that GHADA would provide an organization for
Oh, absolutely.
people who are coming together and
Yep.
want to discuss
Yep, we can do that, we can get a group together, we can have meetings in the evenings, hopefully here, one night upstairs. Thanks, Dan.
She's smiling in the back.
I'm looking at our resident firefighter.
You'll send
There.
something out through email to the
Yep.
attendees at this
Yeah,
meeting?
if everybody is signed in and given their email, we can get you an email out and let everyone know when the next hearing is. And check the county sites as well, 'cause like I found out, and we'll jump through, I don't wanna keep everybody, it's already 9 o'clock, but I do wanna give you some quick updates, because we didn't meet in January. So if you did put your email on, please do so. But we already said the McDonald's, those folks are not talking to anybody at this point, no immediate details. The PNC Bank branch over across the street at 7421 Lancaster, Harvest Market will be taking over that additional space and expanding. Don't know if they're gonna put in like an employee break room, that's one of the things, the employees don't have one. I think they're gonna use retail space and stocking area. The Wells Fargo Bank, former Wells Fargo Bank, look for the sign, it's gonna be Chase. Chase bought it. And what they are proposing is to keep the footprint and to completely refit it. And I can tell you it's probably gonna go through as a plan that looks like the one they did in Pike Creek with the old WSFS. So we're gonna wanna talk about lighting and signage and all that, and that is also under the hometown overlay. So we'll have to look at that one, but they've already filed their exploratory, it's on the county site, just type in the 7270 Lancaster, don't put in Pike, just Lancaster, Hockessin, and look at the plans they filed. Bank with 1 drive-through ATM teller lane, which is actually a reduction of 2 of what's currently there. And they are gonna reorient the parking lot and a lot more landscaping. So I have to say the landscaping plan looks nice, and they're not really changing anything except the bank building itself. And they're not touching the back, which has the mandatory stormwater that's already there. Hartnett Law Building across the street at 7301, that was sold for just a little over $1 million, around 5,500 square feet. They've been still doing the interior renovations. Walgreens, 2012 Brackenville, still listed for $5.8 million. That's the one with the triple M net lease, where if anybody's got a lot of money, you can earn 12.5% for the next 5 to 15 years with renewals on that. Coffee Run Condo, that other building is going in, it's actually building A, 1.4 million, new 5-story building max, 45 luxury condos, must look like the existing ones on the outside. NBF master plan in Yorkland, we all know, Denrec hasn't really done anything from the original plans. They were promised to build and agreed upon public facilities, connections to the Auburn State Park pathways, an exhibit hall, public bathrooms, and completion of the public parking lots, and pathways to the bridge that they put in. They finally did the one up by the Auburn Park office, but the one down on the backside of the old mill buildings is still sitting there high and dry. No way to access it, none of the parking spaces have been put in, and none of those amenities. We have no champion like we had with Matt Chesser, who was the vice chair, or what would it be? Assistant secretary. He's the second in command at Denrec. He's left and gone on to somewhere else, but we have nobody championing that. So the state has literally thrown their hands up, and they're not doing anything. They're not spending a dime and haven't in almost 10 years
You just
now.
bought 30 acres of that factory? So
Yeah,
that
but they're
you-
not doing anything with it. They just bought the land here.
But some of those acquisitions will fully be finalized until next year, so there is still progress happening.
Well, they're buying the land, but they're not putting in the amenities that they promised that were part of the original plan.
So some of the, like, pathway to the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bridge is not connected, the parking lots weren't put in for the people, the public bathrooms that are there. I mean, I've been out there, there's people basically doing their business out in the woods everywhere.
But there is still progress.
But it's not been done. None of the, I mean, there's a porta potty because they did some chemical analysis on this side of the bridge, and it's stuck there because of the snow. That's the only reason it's there. And it needs to be changed. It's been there for 3 months now.
Will be, hearing public comment with Denrec tomorrow.
Let them know, please, build the public bathrooms, put in the parking lots, and connect the bridge. It's in their plan that was filed, they haven't done it, and I agree that buying the land is fine, But what good is land if you can't find a place to park, or use the restroom, or connect to the, all right, that's my 2 seconds on the soapbox. 701 Valley Road, the brick ranch and 3-car garage has been demolished. 520 Valley, no update on that, still listed with a buildable 10,000 by right plan. 6042 and 6060 Limestone, major redevelopment without rezoning. That's the 4% low income, so it's not the whole place, 80 units, 3 stories, parking lots. That's still working its way through. We just talked about the gas station in Richardson. And Valley Grove, the former Camerano Mushroom House. They're waiting right now for spring because DelDOT has to go in and scope all the underground utilities before they can do top layer paving. So at this point, we're waiting for DelDOT and the developer to get the scoping done and approval to top it. Once they do that, that'll finally be it, and those become public streets for maintenance. The last 6 homes have been built. Most of them were put in with the requested interior customization and finishes that the last ones are sold at, so they've got them finished out. Across the street, Hockessin Station, that's the former Morgrellis. As you've seen, they've already done a lot of the site work there, taken down all the remaining buildings, and they're putting in an underground, all the dirt work and the underground storm drains, drain pipes, sewer lines, water lines, and conduit for electric and everything else. 143 homes, down from 147. Cell phone towers, 2 of the 3 of the Verizon towers have been installed, are active in Hockessin. County Howe, Trinity Church, up by the Cokesbury Village area, across that way, Trinity Church, they're installed with the faux pine tree look, and they all have backup power generators for them. The 3rd location was Yorkland, across from the Garrett Snuff Mills, by the Dew Point Garrisons, and next to the former Garrett Mansion. That was denied by County Historic Review. Verizon has said they are going to appeal the decision and will present another round of information and updates to the county. Again, all 3 are Verizon sites that they picked, but other cell providers will have to be allowed access to put antennas on them to share that, and they all will have backup power. And the last one was 1510 Paper Mill Road, rezoning from suburban to suburban transition, S to ST. 32 age restricted townhomes, retain 1 existing 2-story historic home and garage, and the driveway will go from Paper Mill to the community street and further down. That's the one, if you're going down Paper Mill on the left, remember that I called him nice old crazy guy that had a little propane tank? The house on the left. They're gonna turn the driveway to the other side and build down the hill.
And let me tell you that the cell tower in York Lynn, the Historic Review Board, as Mark said, turned it down. They are probably going back to the Historic Review Board. If they do not get something now, the appeal comes through council. And many of us have been on phone calls together, and as far as I'm concerned, safety takes precedent over view shed any minute of the week. I worry about them because if when you're talking to somebody on the phone where it cuts out. If they lose power, they have no Wi-Fi, which means they cannot make phone calls, period. So I can't guarantee that their power is never going to go out. We've already lost a farm up there because it burned to the ground before we had water, where the tankers from like 9 different companies and PA had to keep running up and down Yorkland Road to bring in water. There is a person up there that seems to have some mental issues, and 911 calls go in frequently about that person. We know that we have had 2 accidents where there were drownings. I just can't, this should have been up there years and years ago, but I personally do not feel that we can take the chance to not have cell service if they do not have Wi-Fi.
My understanding from Verizon is that they need to triangulate that signal.
Correct.
And that site in Yorkland is the 3rd piece of the triangle.
Yes.
And that's what's gonna ensure much better service and the safety.
Yes, they can't offset it. You know, like she said, it has to.
It's gotta go where it's gotta go.
Right.
And it has to be a high point
And it
near
has to be a high point.
3-phase power
Yes.
and a main phone truck.
Yes, so the
Because-
discussion right now is with Denrec, because they own property adjacent to where the tower was going to go, but HRB said, no, it can't. But we are also looking at HRB and trying to understand what takes precedent. You know, and for me, people's lives take precedent. I mean, I knew one of the girls that had an accident out there and drowned. If they had no cell service and somebody went past her at night when that truck was in the creek, could they have saved her? Maybe, but I know they have no cell service out there, so that's not over with at this point.
The Tower of the Powell was part of the ARPA initial.
Correct.
Right. The Yorkland Tower, it doesn't rely on the ARPA funds.
Correct.
Because the rest of that's been allocated itself.
The ARPA, I think, did the Trinity and PAL.
But Verizon's gonna fund.
So Verizon, yes, yeah.
All right, and I know Pete's here from Historic, but I'm gonna give a quick shout out for Drew Harrison, Marshall. He has a flyer. Do you have more of these, Drew?
Yeah, I got one more, and we'll be putting it up online. But I'm an Arabic linguist, and we're going to do a seminar at Troop 6. They got the new community room at Troop 6. There's a lot of activity happening there. Definitely come to those events. But this is on common Arabic names. So if you're bad with names, come on down, get better with names, and you'd be surprised. Like Latin is the root language for a lot of Romance languages. Arabic is the root language for so many world languages. And so there's so many variations of these names, and it's really an icebreaker, whether you're in sales, in politics, in business. If you can say someone's names right, it just disarms them. They love it, and it's so respectful. So come on down. It's March 25th, 6 to 8. We're going to have a great time, big Q&A at the end, and it'll be really fun. So,
And that's Troop 6 Community Space.
Yes, yes.
Was it 3:30?
It's 6 to 8 on Wednesday,
3301
March.
Kirkwood Highway. Yep.
Yes, yes, the new Troop 6
All
building.
right,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Pete, real quick on the Historic Society.
Sure thing.
Want to give an update?
And I second that you're an excellent teacher.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
And very informative presentations on that topic. We have our meeting on Wednesday, so I'll save everything for Wednesday when you all come to the meeting. All you have to do is pay your $15 dues to attend and then vote on our different subjects. We did get a recent donation from the library. They donated about 40 books, research books on various aspects of our history. So we're in the process of organizing those and making them available in our library areas in the future for everybody to be able to research our history. Unfortunately, the library is focusing on things that people like, and researching history is not one of those things. So they're getting rid of those historic books, and I think they were going to throw those books out. There was no interest in them. So, you know, we're becoming a repository for all of our local history, which is great. Thank you.
And you know that through Newcastle County that the short film was made on the school, on the colored school.
107.
I don't know if there are copies available of that, from that, do you know?
So I'll produce. To tag on to that, it's screening, probably for the last time, because I think we're kind of done with the film festival circuit. But it's going to be screening at the Rowood Beach Black Mary Film Festival on Sunday. It's going to close out the festival. So if anybody wants to drive down to the Palm Beach, I think tickets, you can find them online for that. To that end, the document is available online on YouTube. You can stream it there. We've not made a point of burning it, because you can stream it, and that's what everybody's doing. So Summit County's YouTube page, hopefully it'll stay there now that I'm not there anymore, but hopefully it'll stay there, and you can stream it anytime.
But it's something that you might want to look into.
It's really good.
Having a copy, and not, they also did one on Mount Olive Cemetery, which is on Lancaster Avenue, and that one won the Mid-Atlantic Emmy. So, I mean,
That's how Matt got the
they're both
Emmy.
historic. I think there needs to be a repository for those types of things.
Matt has a copy of the Emmy in his office. Okay, Mr. Hutchins, you want to talk about HHS or the HBA tomorrow?
Our meeting tomorrow is at the VFW Hall up the street. He'll be our host as well as our guest. Our guest speaker will be Charles Sadek from Outdoors Unlimited, who will discuss the Red Clay Brandy Wine cleanup scheduled for March 28th. So we will discuss the expectations of cleaning up. Hopefully the snow will be gone by then.
We'll have new snow by then.
So Charles Sadek put forth with the meeting of cleaning up the red light for anyone.
All right, and one of the last things, I get to talk about the semi-quincentennial, the 250th celebration of our nation. And if you want to take a guess what happened to the cost of fireworks, I'll give you a hint. They're like the fireworks, they went up a lot. And we were trying to do more, so we had put in an early order to reserve, like sort of a red, white, and blue finale or something. They had like 3 different packages. I said, oh, those all sound cool. What's the deal if we get all 3? And it was more than we spent on just the fireworks, so we're like, let's pick one. But we are probably right now, I can tell you exactly, we're about 38,000 to go before we can have the 4th of July. And that covers everything from all the insurance coverages, the state police, which we have to pay for traffic control and major routes, closures for Lancaster, everything we've got going for the relays in the morning. We've got some yeah, always forget the porta potties. It's a lot of money. I mean, we pay in one day what it is to rent those things for a month, but we can't leave them here for a month as much as it would make sense, based on some of the things we've seen. It'd be nice too. I had this dream of putting like some flags along the street lamps on Old Lancaster Pike, some U.S. flags on short masts, like a 2x3 U.S. flag, but that costs a lot of money too. But I would love to have any business owner or individual that feels inclined to make a donation. Oh, did I mention we're a tax deductible organization? So if you have a tax bill, you can deduct it fully off of your taxes. Heck, I always say in the parade, tell them you give us 100, tell them you gave 200. Nobody's going to check at the IRS. We're too small. And besides, they're too busy and they laid off a bunch of people. This is, by the way, this is not financial advice. I am not an accountant. Please consult your tax accountant for any legal advice. Tongue in cheek, I deny ever saying that. But yeah, we could definitely use some help with that. I do need an announcer in the morning because Janet used to do that, and I had somebody that was helping me, but he's moved out of the area to do the relays with the hat. And that's basically just to announce the races and announce the winners and hang around and basically play music in between. I've got a DJ that handles everything. All you have to do is stand there with a microphone and sound semi-coherent in the morning. Woodside Creamery is usually there, so you can get an ice cream as well. And the churches are usually there with hot dogs and other things too. So there's some side fringe benefits. And afterwards, I will gladly buy you 1 or 2 beers at 2 Point Brewing later in the afternoon at either the beer tent or the next day afterwards, because my favorite day is July 5th. So, but yeah, we've got about, I think it's this year, we're up to about $62,000 to pull off what used to be 43 to 45,000.
It used to be 5.
Yeah, I know. And I remember when it used to be a bunch of guys from the fire department would catch up with the county police who grabbed all the fireworks from the kids, and then they shot them off out in back of the firehouse before. But they're supposedly, right?
I don't know what you're talking
Yeah, that's right. So that's how it got started. But nobody remembers that. But we are considered one of the best 4th of July parades in the state, put on by a bunch of Hockessin volunteers, and we have been rated the best fireworks in Delaware, although Wilmington didn't do it last year, so they saved up for this year. So we want to continue the tradition, and then I will gladly yield the torch to somebody next year to do the 251st. Yeah, I know. I look back, she's done every one of them all the way back to the beginning. So thank you, Janet, always for what you've done. And to Penny Wynn, every time I see him at the parade, I tell him I hate you because he suckered me in along with you. But yeah, so anything you can do, we would definitely appreciate any donations. And if you have the excess pennies, we're here, we can get 2 to 1 on the grocery stores for them. They're paying 2 to 1 on things. All right. Anything for the good of the order? Anybody got any Girl Scout tips? I kicked my habits until my dealer showed up in front of the grocery store the other day. And I admit I don't like 10 minutes. My wife loves it. All right, thank you everybody for hanging in tonight. Thank you for all your comments and remaining civil. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you.